Hello, everyone. My name is Brennan Marr. That noise you're hearing is my ventilator. And welcome to Page Turners They Were Not, my Star Wars podcast. Today is a Star Wars Mother's Day special. Yesterday was Mother's Day. And today I thought it would be fitting to celebrate the mothers of Star Wars. In particular, the mothers of the Skywalker family. Shmi, Padme, and Leia. So, let us begin with Shmi Skywalker. Shmi is an unsung hero of Star Wars. Shmi raised Anakin alone. Of course, as we know, there was no father, and Shmi raised Anakin as a single mom. Obviously, she raised him right, as he was a very giving, selfless, and helpful child. A child who was willing to put others' needs before his own, who was willing to risk a lot for his friends. Also, he was mechanically minded, something that I think Shmi was as well. So, bestowing on Anakin many gifts in his personality that he would need, that would be important later, for good or ill. So, Pernilla August, the actress who plays Shmi Skywalker, gives a very fine performance. She is a Scandinavian actress who's classically trained as a stage actress, having done Shakespeare, Ibsen, and other of the great masters of the European theater. She has also starred in several films with the great Swedish filmmaker Ingmar Bergman, who is probably one of the finest directors the world has ever seen. So the pedigree that Pernilla August brings to the performance is astonishing. Now, a lot has been said about the acting in the prequels being kind of bad in most places. And I agree with that sentiment. However, I do not believe that any negativity, or rather, I can think of nothing negative to say about her performance. Very believable, and the emotion that might be lacking in other parts of the prequels is there. The scene when Anakin says goodbye to his mother is legitimately a heartbreaking moment. Particularly because of the very good performances from both Pernilla August and Jake Lloyd. Because I honestly believe Jake Lloyd gives a heartbreaking performance in that moment. You know, the love that Anakin had for his mom was great, and the love they shared. And Shmi always saw the good in people. And taught Anakin many important lessons about why it's important to help other people. You know, the fact that selflessness is the way to go because there is too much selfishness in the galaxy. And because of these lessons, Anakin was truly a better person for it. Unfortunately, when Anakin returned, his mother passed away in his arms. But she did get to see that he had grown up. So, tragic? Yes. But what Shmi Skywalker brought to that galaxy far, far away is priceless. So those are my thoughts on Shmi. Now let's talk briefly about Padme. Padme never got the opportunity to be a mother to her children. Now, one could say she was a mother to her nation as the Queen of Naboo, and later as a senator continuing that motherly role. So she did get to be that, and I am of the belief that a parent is anybody who parents in any way. It is not a question of biology. A parent, a mother, a father, is someone who acts in that role. Someone who loves their children. And those children could be anybody. So in the case of Padme, she did get to kind of be the mother of her country, of her planet. But as a mother to her twins, Luke and Leia, she never really got that opportunity, as she died moments after they were born. Now, just as a side note, this is one continuity situation that it's hard to get around. And that is the fact that Leia remembers Padme. Now, one could argue it's through the Force. Or as my dad argued, and I had never considered this, it could be a false memory. I think some of us have those. When we remember things from when we were kids, or when we were very young, but it turns out that's not really a real memory. I do believe, however, it was intended to be. And I think that during the evolution of the storytelling, I think it just got lost in the shuffle. So, Leia says she remembers her mother, as always. It would have been nice to see that. Maybe Padme would have gone to Alderaan with Leia and lived there for a couple of years, then died of a broken heart. That's always what I had assumed. In a very tragic, mythological kind of way. Regardless, Padme was only there for a few moments. She was able to name her children. And thankfully, her friendship with Senator Organa turned out to be very good because it meant that it made sense that Senator Organa would adopt Leia. Yoda is the one who decided that Obi-Wan should take Luke to Tatooine. Which brings us, as a side note, to the mothers of Leia and Luke. That, of course, being Queen Breha and Beru Lars, respectively. Senator Organa's wife was the Queen of Alderaan, Queen Breha. And together, she and her husband raised Leah as their own daughter. In fact, I'm not aware, but I don't think Leah actually knew her true paternity. Well, actually, no, to be fair, because if she remembers, at the time of Return of the Jedi, that there's a difference between her, real mother and the mother who raised her, the biological birth mother, as they say, and the mother who raised her. So at least she knew that. At what point, we're not exactly sure. Obviously, she did not know who her father was, her birth father, until many years later. Now, that being said, I think that it's clear to say that Queen Breha raised Leia well. And oddly enough, in a parallel path to that of her mother. Leia and Padme were similar, in that they were politicians, in that they cared very much about the good of the galaxy, in that they were willing to do things and put themselves in the line of fire to get the job done. So, I think that it also brings up the question of nature versus nurture. How much of that was the way that Leia was raised by Queen Breha and her husband, and how much of that was just already there, the personality of her mother passed down? That's an interesting question, which has real-world implications too. And then we come to Luke. I think it's pretty clear that Beru raised him well. Because Luke, even though he was a bit of a whiner, was still a kind-hearted individual who even cared about droids, which is interesting because most people don't. A kind-hearted individual who dreamed of adventure, but I think was content, or at least for the most part, to help others, to be kind, to be a force for good. And I think that, Uncle Owen's a bit of a curmudgeon, but a good man. But I think what we saw of Beru was that she was a very caring individual. Somebody who, was kind of said to Owen, Luke wants to go to the academy. It means a lot. Yeah, so I think she was a bit more understanding of her nephew than her husband. And I think that a lot of Luke's personality that we see, which did involve being kind and being loving to others, came from Aunt Beru. So I think praise needs to be given to her for raising him right. Okay. I'm going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Leia. See ya. Hello there. This is Brennan Marr, host of Page Turners They Were Not, a Star Wars podcast. And I'm here to tell you about Anchor. Anchor is the best way to make a podcast. Why is that? Well, first off, it's free. Yes, you heard me right. Anchor is free. Anchor has all the tools you need to make a podcast from your phone or your computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you on various platforms. including Spotify and Apple Podcast. You can make money from the podcast. And get this, with no minimum listenership. That means you can make money even if no one listens to your podcast. That, of course, is not ideal, as Anchor will allow you to spread your podcast, bring in more viewers, and you can make more money because of it. Everything you need to make a podcast is in one place on Anchor. If you're interested, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Thank you, and may the force be with you. Okay, and we are back after that brief message. Now, Leia, yet again, we didn't actually get to see her raise Ben Solo. But we see the connection between the two. Because I think it's clear that Ben Solo had a better relationship with his mother than he had with his father. Leia continued to fight the good fight. Even after Ben had fallen to the dark side and taken on the mantle of Kylo Ren. Even after all the bad he had done, Leia still stayed the course. Now, Han Solo, as we know, went back to doing his smuggling thing. Went back to being kind of a rapscallion. But Leia continued to be a strong politician. And leader in the newly formed resistance. A resistance, by the way, which she formed. And it's continued to fight the good fight as she always had. Leia, like her mother before her, was not afraid to get her hands dirty. Not afraid to get in the fight, get in the middle of it. And thus she continued. Now, I think it is clear, as I said, that Ben and Leia had a better relationship. As he was unwilling to kill her at the beginning of The Last Jedi. And we know that there at the end, Leia using the Force to reach out and contact Ben, giving all that she had left to give. A move that she knew would kill her, but did it with the hope that she could reach her son. And I think it meant that she had to sacrifice something. I think the reason that she had not done it yet, had not tried such a thing before, was she knew that it would take her life, based on her proficiency with the Force. She knew it would take her life, and maybe she was holding on hope. Holding on to the hope that she could see her son face to face again. But in that moment, I think she made the decision to sacrifice her life to reach her son, instead of waiting any longer. Leia, I think, knew her days were numbered. I think her space flight in The Last Jedi, I think she was slowly dying from that. Truly, probably one of the greatest moments of mothering in Star Wars is Leia reaching out across the galaxy to reach her son. A truly extraordinary move. there's so much more that we could say about Leia as a mother. And I hope that someday we'll get to explore more of that. What that relationship was like. But I think it's clear. Based on the slight bit of good we see in Kylo, from Ben, and his conflict with the light always creeping in. I think a lot of that goes to Leia. And Leia believed in her son. She was afraid that he could never come back. You know, she said to Han, there is still good in him. I know it. Leia had great faith in her son. And I also like that Leia got to be a mother figure and Jedi Master to Rey. And yet again, like the previous two, well, particularly like Padme, Leia was a mother to more than just her children or her child, but to the whole galaxy to a degree. So, those are my thoughts on the mothers of Star Wars. Another mother that deserves a little bit of praise, who never appeared in live action, is Hera Syndulla, the pilot of the Ghost in Star Wars Rebels, as being a great mother figure. While all the other members of her team had their own hiccups and their own idiosyncrasies, Hera was always the moral compass. So those are my thoughts on the mothers of Star Wars. Let me know what you think. My name is Brendan Marr. That noise you're hearing is my ventilator. And thank you for tuning in to Page Turners They Were Not, my Star Wars podcast. May the Force be with you.